Hey everyone.
Welcome back again.
Yeah, was our last session for the
last one for today.
Second day of the challenge. We usually do challenges. This is a summit.
This is a summit, but it's been I think what we've had today has been a lot of meat.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've gone through everything from John Kempf just blowing our minds with soil health and the microbial interactions with plants, all the way down to just the last session with Jared and Annette, which was fantastic. Just very simple building soil health, like for a home gardener. And tonight we have Luke Marion from My Gardener, and he's going to be sharing. We're going to be pulling him up here in a second. But before that, we are going to have a giveaway. And so I'm going to pull up I keep closing the StreamYard giveaway tool so that we can set the word. Are you ready for the word to put in the chat? The word this time is worm, like the worm in your garden. So type worm in the chat. You ready?
The early bird gets the worm.
There you go. The early bird gets the worm. And here is what we are giving away. We have one of our sponsored giveaways here, and that is for, you ready for this? Drum roll. And the Urban Worm Bag. The Urban Worm Bag is one of the most awesome ways to do worm composting. Vermicomposting. So you can get one of these bags and you put the worms in there, you put all the stuff that they eat, and they're going to do their thing, and then you can take out the bottom. Awesome worm castings to use on your garden. So that's a very simplified version of it. But here we go. Somebody is going to win Urban Worm Bag here. You ready? I'm going to switch over our screen here and share the giveaway. And ready, 3, 2, 1. The winner is, drum roll. Who's it going to be? And the winner is EK. Please send us an email to support@seedtime.us so we can confirm your win of the Urban Worm Bag, and we can get that over to you. And a big shout out to
congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. A big shout out to Steve with the Urban Worm Bags, and for being willing to give one of those away. You can find those Urban Worm Bags, by the way, in the Seed Time store. So if you didn't win and you want one, it's a great thing to get. Go over to the Seed Time store and give a search for that. All right. Just before we invite our guest on, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor for today, and that is Azure Standard. And as we've been saying, we've used Azure Standard for a long time.
Oh, yeah. What's
your favorite thing about Azure, Dad?
I think the quality of the foods that they sell is, it's, you don't have to question, am I getting something good?
Yeah.
You know that it's a high quality product, whatever it is.
Yeah, 100%. And if you are a new customer to Azure, there's a link down on this page to get 15% off your first order of $100 or more. Go sign up. It's free to sign up as as a member of Azure. And when you make that first order, you actually get entered to win some pretty cool, I think that's like some mason jar lids or something like that. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, I'm going to play a short video. We'll throw up the link in the chat here, and then we'll be right back.
So what is it that makes Azure different than a standard e-commerce company? Two things. One is, hey, we have lived organic and healthy farming and eating my entire life and my family's entire life. And the second thing is Azure has created a network for our logistics that nobody else has. We can deliver cold, frozen, bulk, all on a very efficient method by bringing it into local communities instead of right to the door. So this creates the community that supports the ability to get healthy food without having to pay astronomical shipping prices, whether that's included in the cost of the food or on top of it.
All right. So yeah, go click that link, go grab your discount with Azure Standard. Definitely encourage you, like literally most everyone in our entire family, in our whole community, we all order from Azure and we all love the experience because they have amazing, really great products there. All right, we want to invite and introduce our guest speaker today, Luke Marion from My Gardener, which was started back in 2011 with a passion to inspire others to grow a garden, live healthier lives, and have a lot of fun doing it at the same time. So My Gardener can be found across all the different social platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And they believe that gardening can be made fun and accessible to anyone of any skill level. So we're super excited to have Luke on with us. He's really great at empowering people to grow their own food, obviously teaches and inspires so many people through the YouTube channels and social media channels and through the My Gardener store, where you can get all kinds of seeds. And now actually you can get My Gardener seeds through Seed Time, which is so cool as well. And they have so much to offer. So I'm going to pull Luke up here. And thanks for joining us, Luke.
Yeah.
Hey, such an honor. I always appreciate it. Always fun. And anytime I can get to talk about gardening or basically improving the soil as a good steward of our land, that's something that I really enjoy doing. And so I appreciate it. It's an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I'll tell you what, we're going to just transition the time over to you. We'll kind of drop backstage, but if you need us for anything, give a shout and we'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to be talking all about basically finding don't apply a Band-Aid, but find a cure. When I first started gardening, so many of the things that I learned from my grandparents were basically, they were inherited from the farming model. And the issue that arises with implementing things from a farming model is that unfortunately, there's a lot of dependency. There's a lot of issues that can arise with soil quality. And a lot of the problems that we have, we are told to simply put Band-Aids over them. And so many of the reasons why us as gardeners struggle, or even as small farmers struggle, is because we are not taking care of the soil the way that we should. And so, so there's a couple things that I want to talk on and touch on, because essentially everything that we do as gardeners is simple, and it all boils down to compost. And there's several ways that we can kind of heal and amend our soil over time. But the nice thing is it does boil down to compost. Spoiler. There's not a whole lot of there's nuance, but there's not a whole lot of complicated matters when it comes to fixing your soil. And so if you have heavy clay soil, you may find that your soil does not drain as well. There might be compaction. It doesn't breathe as well. But you also have problems with too sandy of soil, right? In too sandy of soil, it drains too well. It breathes too well. It's too much of any good thing. And in the sweet spot between the two, you have what's called sandy loam. And sandy loam is essentially a combination of sand, silt, and clay in the right proportions that essentially offer you all the benefits of clay soil and all the benefits of sandy soil and everywhere in between. It's kind of the Goldilocks scenario. So what happens initially when soil is depleted, if you have the wrong type of soil and we're overworking the soil, we're essentially overworking and we are working harder than we have to, is we begin to do things that are actually contrary to the way that nature would have intended us to grow. And that's primarily with fertilizer. So I've got some slides prepared, and I want to show you kind of some of the first things that can happen. So this right here is an indicator of salt buildup. And the problem that we have with so many of our Band-Aids is that they come with unintended side effects. I think we've all probably seen, you'll listen to an advertisement about some type of medication. It could be like weight loss or a blood pressure medication. It says side effects may include, all these litany of things. And I firmly believe that just like in health, your soil, a healthy plant starts with healthy soil. Our bodies start with, there's a lot of chronic diseases and chronic illnesses that can happen from not taking care of our diet. What we eat, we are what we eat. And our plants are no different. And what this picture here is actually a picture of salt buildup. Now, this is in a container, but this actually can happen in your soil as well. And what happens is anytime you're using synthetic fertilizers are what a lot of gardeners will turn to when it comes to fixing a problem. They don't want to fix the soil structure. They don't want to add organic material, or it's too much work to add organic material. And therefore, they simply turn to a cure-all or a quick fix, which is not actually a quick fix. It actually is going to set your garden back, set your soil back, and that's by using synthetic fertilizers. Synthetic fertilizers are made to be plant available or bioavailable, but the unintended side effects are that while they're convenient, we trade with it, basically harming the soil structure. Now, the soil structure is alive. It's living, it's breathing, it has beneficial bacteria, it has fungi, it has insects, and it is essentially a home for our plants to live and thrive in. And when we use synthetic fertilizers, essentially what happens is this salt builds up. You have essentially chemical compounds. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different chemical compounds. You may have heard of like magnesium sulfate, right? That's a naturally occurring compound, but it's magnesium and sulfur. You may have something like ammonium nitrate, right? There's so many compounds that farmers will recommend adding to your soil to fix a problem. And so we can pull that slide down for a quick second here, because basically I want to, that is salt buildup. And when you have salt buildup in the soil, what happens is it locks up. It creates, basically, it binds the soil. And over time, you'll hear people say, oh, you just have to flush your soil. The problem is if you are flushing your soil, that's to remove the salt buildup. Now, I'm not talking salt buildup in terms of table salt. It's a different type of salt than that. But essentially, the salt buildup, it's like a mineral salt essentially, will build up in your soil. It can actually, over time, lock up and bind nutrients. And so in order to then release the nutrients or release the mineral salt buildup, you have to flush your soil with salt or with water to remove those salts from the soil. And that all seems great. Okay, you flushed your soil from the salts, but the side effects is that salt buildup can actually harm and kill the beneficial bacteria and fungi found in an organic gardening structure. And the problem that I always had was we take the farming methods, we scale them down to the home garden, when in fact I've always said that it should be the opposite. We should in fact take the home gardening model, the bio-intensive organic model, and scale it up to the farm. Do the opposite. I mean, there's no question that we as home gardeners look at our gardens and we say, wow, our garden is so much more productive than a farm is. On a per acre basis, some studies have shown that a bio-intensive organic home garden can be up to 6 times more productive per acre than a conventional farm. Well, why is that? Well, obviously you have spacing to account for large farming implements, but I have spacing in between my raised beds. it comes down to the way that we take care of our soil. Historically, when you can be hyper-focused and fixated on soil quality, your plants are naturally going to reflect that because, again, what your plants eat, which is the soil, is what they become. And if your soil is healthy, you can actually improve your overall plant's health. So, so now that we talked about salt buildup, because that is the root of the problem. You might have clay soil or sandy soil, but that over time is going to get fixed with organic material, which is what we'll talk about. But the real crux of the problem is what I call a dependency problem. We are essentially dependent on fertilizers to give our plants what we think they need. So I'm going to pull up the slide again, and now that we've talked about salt buildup, we're going to talk about the beneficial fungi and beneficial bacteria at work in our garden. So this picture right here seems a little scary, but if you've ever grown clover or beans or any type of legume, if you were to pull up the crop, you will notice this on the roots. And this is actually a good thing. This is what we want to see in a healthy environment. This is known as rhizobium bacteria. Now, rhizobium bacteria are nitrogen-fixing bacteria that will actually colonize the roots of legumes. It actually will colonize the root formation and create these little nodules. Now, these nodules take nitrogen from the air, atmospheric nitrogen, and they will take that atmospheric nitrogen and they will fix it into nitrogen that can be used by plants. And this is incredibly important to the soil structure because nitrogen is a difficult. You have nitrogen that's in the air, then you have nitrogen that is coming in the form of like broken down organic material, compost. You have nitrogen that essentially is locked away that needs to be converted. Right? There's different forms of nitrogen. There's nitrates. There's nitrites. There are so many different forms of nitrogen that exist out there. And these beneficial bacteria these rhizobium bacteria attach to plant roots and actually help to overall add nitrogen to the soil. And we'll get back to this specific bacteria later on when we talk about cover crops, because that's one thing that we are not doing as gardeners, but also we're not colonizing, we're not hosting that. Rhizobium bacteria live in a part of the soil called the rhizosphere. Now, the rhizosphere is a layer of soil just below the organic material. It's about 2 to 3 inches below the surface of the soil. Now, this slide here is what soil scientists or agronomists, or farming scientists would look at as kind of very entry level. This is a very beginner level here. And it's known as soil horizons. Now, soil horizons is just a fancy way of saying soil levels. And the very first level that we have is what's called the organic material layer. That is the topsoil. That is essentially that is the lifeblood of our earth. That's what sustains life. Then you have the surface soil, and the surface soil is what begins to break down. You have a lot of organic material that gets weathered and degrades, and it settles down through the soil as essentially new organic material gets generated. And then below that, you have your subsoil. That subsoil is weathered and degraded rock. It is very old topsoil. It's kind of a combined layer of the two. And then you have below that you have substrate and you have bedrock and whatnot, which are not as important. But essentially, what we have is we have an environment where the roots, they don't go all the way down through the soil. They only live in a very finite area. And if we don't take care of that very finite area, we're talking the bedrock in some places can be 150 feet down. So while on this image, it looks relatively close to where the plants are, it could be several hundred feet down. Sometimes it's only 10 feet down. It just varies on where you're at geographically. But once you have a substrate on top of that, and then you have a subsoil on top of that, over time, due to plants growing and dying and growing and dying and growing and dying, it builds up your soil. But what happens as farmers is, or even as gardeners, we work the soil and we deplete the soil. And what happens when we deplete the soil through constant rototilling and trying to fix our subsurface, our subsoil, and our topsoil layer is over time we flip and we agitate and we work that soil, deflating the structure over time, causing our soil to actually get worse. Because naturally what would happen is we'd have a layer of organic material, it would grow up and it would die. And that would then help to provide the nutrients for the next generation of crops that would grow up, and then they would die. And over time, you build up those layers of organic material. And the issue that we have is that we are not taking care of our soil. We are rototilling, and that's a simple way to say, well, if your soil quality is too heavy clay, break it up. Just break it up in the spring, plant your crops, you're good to go. But you're not good to go because it hasn't been fixed. That's merely a Band-Aid. Rototilling is a Band-Aid. Compost and organic material and cover crops is the cure. Okay, my soil is highly depleted in beneficial bacteria and fungi. Those are the things that actually attach to plant roots. They provide nutrients, they provide water, they help to expand the overall root system and the immune system of the plant. My soil is depleted in those. Okay, well, so you don't have the ability to uptake nutrients. Why don't you just add synthetic nutrients? Again, that's the Band-Aid. The cure is providing the organic material, whether it be the form of cover crops, compost, anything like that. That is the actual cure that's going to fix and bring in and inoculate the soil with beneficial bacteria and fungi. The minerals and the nutrients will be made available by the beneficial bacteria and fungi. Don't rely on the Band-Aid, find the cure. And then the final thing that people would say is, my garden at the end of the season needs to be dealt with. Well, okay, so rather than rototill it under, break it up, I'm going to remove it. I'm going to remove my harvest in the form of consumption. I'm going to remove my tomato plants, my corn plants, my bean plants. I'm going to pull them out. I'm going to throw them away. I might compost them if I'm lucky. Or I might just send them out to the trash, or I might burn them, whatever. But I want them out of my garden. I want my garden to look clean. That causes future problems because, again, it should have been rototilled back in. It should have been returned to the earth. You know, what starts on the earth grows and needs to be returned to the earth. And that continues that life cycle. And so we are essentially degrading over time. Another thing is when we are not growing plants, we're not covering our soil, what happens is soil degrades. I think we all have heard of Dust Bowl during the Great Depression. Sent a bunch of people from Oklahoma. They were called Okies. They got sent to California to find work because all the farmland during the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl had been overgrazed by cattle. It had been overworked through conventional farming. And when there were strong winds that whipped up in Oklahoma, they had a drought. That topsoil layer blew away. And some soil scientists have said that issue actually is what has caused Oklahoma to be set back nearly 50 years. It took nearly 50 years of land reclamation, the rains to return, for the soil to be back to where it should have been. 50 years it was set back. So that's like me being 30, making a mistake. And when I'm 80, someone's saying, okay, now you have officially resolved that mistake. Now you can move on with your life. I couldn't have lived from 30 to 80, couldn't have lived another day. I could not have experienced anything until that problem was resolved. And I'm 80, someone says, okay, now you can live your life again. I would feel as if I've lost almost all of my life. I've wasted all that time. And that's exactly what happens to our soil, is it sets it back tremendously. Now, the benefit is that as gardeners, we have so much control that we can go out, we can buy compost, bring it in the very next year, right? We're not causing widespread problems. The thing is, it's systemic, right? It's something that across the board, we find band-aids and not cures to everything we do. We're a convenience-based culture. And that problem is what causes more problems. It causes a snowball effect. And so what we need to do is we need to realize that we have all the tools at our disposal to fix these problems. So with that, we're going to get into the biggest thing. Now, on a farm, I am now a farmer. I have a garden. I've had several gardens. Now I farm. We're going to practice what's called cover cropping. Now, cover cropping, I may have a cover crop. No, I don't have a slide for cover crop. So there, essentially, cover crops, there's many different cover crops. You have winter rye. You have perennial rye. These are like grasses. You have oats. You have hairy vetch. You have white clover, red clover. You have so, oh my gosh, there's so many. There is snow peas, right? Winter peas. There are radishes. Lots of farmers will use radishes to aerate the soil, break down, becomes a great cover crop. You have, I could go on and on. There are so many. The big thing here is that every cover crop will have benefits. Your legumes, like your field peas, will have nitrogen fixing. Your ryegrasses will actually offer weed suppression. Believe it or not, ryegrass, the roots of ryegrass excrete an enzyme that actually will help to deter weeds from germinating. If you have a tall grass like this, the most amazing thing that we're going to be using on our farm is to reclaim the soil. We brought in a little bit of compost, but compost can be very expensive. We just got just enough to get a base. And then we're going to, our choice for our cover crop is going to be approximately 85% perennial ryegrass. It's going to be ryegrass that continues to grow year after year. It will reseed, but if we keep it mowed, keep it well cut, it's going to keep regenerating biomass and building up that topsoil layer like I talked about. But then we're also going to have about 5% white clover and about 10% red clover. And that'll give us just a ryegrass and clover blend that's going to be not only nitrogen fixing from the legumes, right? Clover is a legume, but then it also has the ryegrass component, which generates lots of biomass. And this photo that I have pulled up here is what we can do on a large farming scale. Again, taking what we learned from the home gardening scale and scaling it up. It's very simple. Take a quick drink of water. So what we want to do is we want to essentially find some way to cover our soil. If we don't cover our soil, nature will cover our soil. And if nature doesn't cover the soil, that's because our topsoil has been washed away or has been blown away through either erosion from rain or wind blowing it away, like the Dust Bowl. So this is a very cool method. Now, this is actually known as crimping. Now, farmers will use this method, and a lot of farmers are starting to turn to this method of crimping, because what essentially is happening in this image is you have a tractor that has a crimper. It essentially is just it's essentially like a yard roller. A yard roller is another great way. You don't even need a crimper. You can use a yard roller, attach it to a side-by-side, a four-wheeler, a lawn tractor, and roll over, just roll over your cover crop, flatten it. And you might be thinking, well, aren't you compressing your soil? It's because you're not. See, the thing is, there's so much biomass here that once it is flattened, it actually acts as an insulative buffer, essentially a cushion or padding, that you could drive a tractor over it, and you're not actually compressing and compacting that soil layer. And then what happens is you're essentially crimping that stem. You're breaking the stem, preventing water from getting up to the seed heads. And when it falls down on the soil, you're also mulching the soil. That's what's so crazy about this, is that not only are you then covering your soil, you're then feeding the soil, because over time that organic material is going to get broken down by worms and pill bugs and other creepy crawlies, but also beneficial bacteria and fungi will come up and break that down. And you'll have essentially an incredibly rich soil layer that is expedited. And then that can be done year after year. Anytime you're not growing a cash crop, whether it be a tomato, a pepper, some lettuce, or your whole garden, you should be covering your soil. Now, this is obviously a form of cover cropping. This is what we're doing on a large scale on our farm, but you can also do this on a small scale. This right here is known as a foot crimper. It is essentially a 2x4 board that has eye hooks drilled through it. And those eye hooks have a rope that is attached that you can hold on to, wrap it around your hands, and you simply step up, crimp. When it's crimped, then you pick it up and you move it forward about 5 to 6 inches. You pick it up, you stomp down, and that crimping is the same thing that crimping tool will do on a very small scale. And once you have crimped the seed heads, essentially the water cannot get up. It will not reseed. You'll have very little, very, very little reseeding that will happen. And what will happen is it will die off, and you'll get a wonderful mulch layer that for the whole growing season, or nearly the whole growing season, will offer the weed suppression, and it'll offer water conservation, which will help to hold the water in the soil, help to actually amend the soil over time by breaking down and forming organic material. And you'll have worms, you'll have, like I said, loads of beneficial bacteria and fungi. And you'll notice I'm not mentioning anything about organic or about synthetic fertilizers. This gets you away from that system of dependency. This is the thing that big agriculture actually fears from the home gardening movement and the bio-intensive farming movement, is the fact that there are things that we are learning about our soil and about the way that we farm that you don't need to do on a large scale. If you take the time to really care for your soil, you can grow 4 to 5 times more food per acre than you can on a conventional farm by simply implementing methods that work and are natural. And it's flat out the truth about it. Once you have crimped, you can apply what's called silage tarps. Now, you don't have to necessarily crimp. You can take your lawn, believe it or not, a regular lawn. You could take whatever type of environment you have. It could be pretty weedy even, believe it or not. Even if there was invasive weeds, if you had some creeping Charlie, if you had a lot of pretty resilient clover, or some stuff that's quack grass and stuff that's coming up, you can cover it with what's called a silage tarp. Now, a silage tarp is incredible. It's indispensable. It is so important to the farm because on a medium scale, not a large scale, it's not practical over several acres, but on a medium scale, you can buy a 50-foot by 50-foot silage tarp for $150. They last many years. You weigh them down with either rocks, sticks, or logs, cinder blocks, doesn't really matter. You weigh it down on the edges, and what it does is it smothers. It smothers, and it won't heat up to be very hot to where it kills the soil, but it warms the soil, allowing you to start your garden sooner. But it also allows you to kill off those weeds, kill off that cover crop that you planted. The worms will come up and completely consume that cover crop, and you will be left with absolutely bare soil as if you've rototilled it. And that's the amazing thing, is the worms then will then soften your soil. You won't have to rototill. Now, I've been on the record as saying that rototilling can be done if necessary, but should be avoided if possible. Now, I want to reiterate, because I think a lot of people miss out on that. Rototilling, I believe, can be done if necessary, but should be avoided if possible. And that's something that I've learned from my two biggest mentors with organic gardening and essentially biointensive farming. And that's because that to start a garden, if you start with a garden from scratch, you may not have time to plant a cover crop. You may not have time to cover with a silage tarp. Your soil quality may be very bad. In that case, throwing in some compost, rototilling it under, or cow manure or anything like that, rototilling it through is not great, but in the short term, it's going to give you a garden that you can grow in. But slowly over time, as your soil starts to improve, you should be working away from tilling and working more towards a no-till approach to gardening and farming, because it's just way more sustainable in the long run. And so again, it should be avoided if possible. But if you need to do it and it's absolutely necessary, go ahead and do it, but just work towards more no-till. This is compost. Now, we've all seen compost, I think. Compost is something that as gardeners, we aim for, we aspire for. And what you'll notice is that compost contains bits of wood, little chunks of organic material that's not fully broken down. And that is humus. That is the sponge of the garden. That holds on to water, it holds on to nutrients, it holds on to all the amazing things that we get from breaking down organic material. And I cannot tell you how important this is. You can either bring this in through purchasing it, you can make it yourself, or you can actually make it through cover cropping. You'll get the exact same effect through cover cropping, you just won't get as much. In cover cropping, you may get 1/32 of an inch. Whereas if you buy it, you can bring in 2 or 3 inches worth of compost, throw it down. Heck, you can have a raised bed and add your compost right to your raised bed and have 10, 12 inches of compost right away. So there's tremendous benefits that can come from compost, but there's a lot of ways to get it. This essentially is just organic material. That's all it is. It's organic material, and it's the cure-all for heavy clay soil. It's the cure-all for overly degraded soil. It's the cure-all for heavy sand soil. It is the cure-all that essentially bridges the gap between all of those problems that gardeners try to find band-aids for, when in reality, it's the cure. And it's very, very simple. So essentially, this is what we are trying to, is what we're trying to get away from. Is we're trying to get you as gardeners away from a system of dependency. We are trying to get you away from the reliance on these external additives, because not only do they cost money, but they over time damage your soil, and it prevents us as gardeners from learning. Because the thing is that if you sit there and you think the garden is just so simple, it just grows itself because I have all these external items, you begin to get a little bit complacent in your thinking and you lose the connection that you have. One of my fondest memories as a gardener, believe it or not, because I grew conventionally. My grandparents grew conventionally. My parents grew conventionally. There is, I guess, as a beginning gardener, there's a time and place to try and experiment. But when you go to the store, that's usually the first place that most gardeners, believe it or not, that's the first place that most gardeners actually interact with their garden. And that's what we find through many different experiences that we actually that we pull with our audience and our viewers, is we'll say, where did you first go when you decided you wanted to have a garden? Where was the first place you went? It wasn't YouTube. It wasn't Facebook. It wasn't Instagram. They got the inspiration from there. When they decided that they were going to have a garden, where do they go? I went to Lowe's. I went to Home Depot. I went to Menards. I went to Walmart. I went to Kroger, right? I went to my local garden center. And the problem is what are all these places? They are businesses. They are there to make money. They're there to sell goods and products. They're not there to help you become a better gardener. And the products that they're selling are coming from other businesses as well. And those other businesses are there to make money. And the problem with only focusing on making money is that you're inspired to grow a garden for the first time, or maybe you've gardened for a few years. You have blinders on because you think that your garden starts at a store. Gardening should never start with consumerism. That's the problem. Gardening should never start with consumerism. Heck, that's why on a large scale farms, we've basically taken our incredible soil, completely depleted over time, because we have traded our soil and the quality of health, or quality of soil, the health of the soil. We've traded that for consumerism. We need these cash crops. We need sugar beets to be grown for sugar, for sweetening up our children. We need to grow corn for high fructose corn syrup, for soda, right? These cash crops, they're not intended to actually feed and nurture our bodies. They're intended to simply be turned into junk food. And you have soybean oil, right? We need something to fry our greasy fries in. Right? It's consumerism. It's consumerism at every turn. And that is the problem, is when we interact with our garden, the very first interaction we have is with a store. We don't learn about the systems in place that were free. They've been free for thousands of years. We just haven't taken the time to sit down, take the blinders off, and say, this is the way that was provided to us through the past 1,000 years, 2,000, 5,000 years, however long people have been growing food for. These systems, heck, even not even growing food, since plants have been alive, these systems have been working. And as soon as we as gardeners step back and not try to micromanage and try to find Band-Aids, we can learn more about our garden, learn about the ways to fix our garden, and furthermore, help us garden easier by implementing these systems that just work. They just work. And so I hope that everyone really enjoyed. I hope that people watching really found this to be informative. It's tough for me because as someone that is a content creator, it is very difficult for me to shake all of you and say gardening is really just as simple as working on your soil. If you work on your soil, the rest really takes care of itself. And the thing is as consumers, we're in a consumerist mindset. We think, well, there must be like 100 other things to fix my soil. No, it's just one thing. It's just one thing. There are many different forms of that one thing, but there's only one thing that fixes your soil. Only one. You can hear 1,000 other people. You might, if someone says, you got to try biochar. Biochar is good. It happens naturally when there's forest fires that creates charcoal. That's not going to fix your soil long term. If you add charcoal to your soil, not going to fix it long term. Now, I say, well, add gypsum. Yes, gypsum does break up clay soil, but does it fix it long term? No, it doesn't. There's no organic material added when you add gypsum to your clay soil. Does it break it up? Absolutely. But it's just another product you got to buy. Unless you happen to buy land with a gypsum mine on it, you got to go buy it somewhere. So what is the fix? The fix is compost. The fix is organic material. Whether you decide to go out and buy the compost, or whether you decide to make it yourself, or whether you decide to make compost right where you're gardening and use cover cropping, compost is what fixes the soil. It fixes the drainage. It fixes the aeration. It fixes the pH. Heck, if your soil is too acidic, if it's too alkaline, compost is a natural pH buffer that buffers back to 7. 7 is neutral. Compost brings in organic material, but it also brings in beneficial bacteria and fungi. What is depleted over time through tilling, solarization of the soil, salt buildup, chokes out and completely chokes out the beneficial bacteria and fungi. This brings it back. Compost is the cure. We just have to, as gardeners, find economical ways to bring compost into our garden and then trust that it's a process. The final thing I'll say is that one of my favorite gardeners ever, my grandpa taught me this. And he said, you don't gain weight overnight. It's caused from lifestyle changes that happen over many years. And so fixing your garden is just like changing your diet. If you expect to lose weight overnight, it took several years of bad changes to add on the weight. It's going to take several years to lose the weight. You just at some point have to make the change to start losing weight. And so if growing a garden is something that you want to do, you absolutely can grow the most amazing and successful garden you've ever seen. But you have to start deciding that you're going to fix the soil first, and then over time, trusting that it's a process, the compost will fix the problems that you're having, and you're going to have the best garden you've ever seen. And with that, thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much, Luke. That was really great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tons of awesome comments in the chat. Just people super appreciating it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's a lot of people have a mental hurdle to get over when it comes to realizing that it's just as simple as one thing. Most people almost want it to be more difficult than it actually is. It's like if it's too good to be true, it probably is. It's like, no, it really is just as simple as one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because, well, I was just sharing with Paul, there's something going around called No Buy 25. And, we can even do that in our gardens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And it's all about reducing consumerism, because so many gardeners, they feel like when they go to a store that product is going to be the fix, it's going to be the cure, when it's not actually the fix or the cure. It might help in some way. But it's not the fix or the cure. It's you got to turn natural first. That is the cure. And then if you want to buy a little product or a tchotchke here or there, that's fine. But you can't fix your soil from the store. It's not possible.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So let's get to some questions. Teresa has one starting out. She says, what can I do to fix a 5,000 square foot garden that has had 4 years of wood chips? Garden has gotten worse. I plan on starting to plant cover crops if I can figure out what or when, but do I need to remove the wood chips?
Yeah, so the problems most likely are arising from the wood chips, because wood chips do take a long time to break down. Now, what I would encourage her to do is to apply nitrogen to help to expedite the breakdown of the wood chips. You see that the wood chips, they're essentially sucking nitrogen out of the soil. And if you don't have enough nitrogen in the soil to begin with, whatever nitrogen is there is completely sucked out to help break down the wood chips. It's known as nitrogen sequestration. We talk a lot about it on the channel. I do many videos about nitrogen sequestration. And a lot of people, they see this, it's called back to Eden. It's a no-till style of gardening. And many people apply this back to Eden style of no-till gardening, which is great, but they miss the one critical point that Paul Gauci talks about in the back to Eden style of gardening, which is that you need to have chicken manure or some type of manure that's high in nitrogen to help feed and fertilize the soil while the wood chips break down. Otherwise, your garden is going to severely suffer. So absolutely apply some type of nitrogen to your soil. It could be sprinkling blood meal over the soil. It could be spraying it with fish fertilizer. These are things you can buy at the store, but they are actually going to fix the problem because you need nitrogen. You also could just go to your local farmer near you, get some cow manure, get some horse manure, sheep manure, chicken manure, doesn't matter. Throw down that manure down, spread over the garden. That's going to have a lot of nitrogen. That's going to help to break down those wood chips. And then absolutely throw cover crop seeds on as soon as you can. Rough the soil up, put the cover crop seeds down, particularly clover. Highly, highly, highly recommend clover because what she needs right now is lots of nitrogen. That's going to help to add the nitrogen back. And then apply a silage tarp or crimp it and lay it flat. That works. Crimping works best with tall crops like perennial ryegrass or something like that. But you can still flatten clover and smother it with a silage tarp, and it will absolutely positively bring the worms back, and that will help to finish breaking down the wood chips. And over 5,000 square feet, like I said, you can get a silage tarp, which is 50 by 50 for like 120, 150 bucks. And if my math serves me correct, I think that's 2,500 square feet. Am I correct? 50 times 50?
50 times 50, yeah.
Yeah.
2,500. So all she would need is two of them. Essentially, throw two of them down, two silage tarps, like 300 bucks. She can use them year after year. It will dramatically change the course of her garden. And I guarantee that in 2 years, her garden that is suffering now will be thriving then.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome feedback.
That's great. Yeah. So someone's wondering, or a number of people have been wondering about the fertilizers that you buy in the store that are labeled as organic.
Yeah. So again, there are things at the store that can help us as gardeners, but they are not the cure for the problem. Generally, the cure for the problem is that we're not taking care of our soil first. You see, I'm a huge advocate of using, so we have a fertilizer called Trifecta. We use that in our garden. But if you want to use, like I told the previous person that asked a question, blood meal, bone meal. Bone meal has lots of phosphorus. Blood meal has lots of nitrogen. Green sand is rich in potassium. You might use potash, which is rich in potassium. There are so many different forms of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, trace minerals, all this great stuff that can help your plants to grow better. But if you're not taking care of the soil first, none of it really matters. You could add as much fertilizer, even organic fertilizer, as your heart contents. And if the beneficial bacteria and fungi are not there to help make that stuff bioavailable, break it down for the plants, it won't be available. It will not be available in the quantities that your plants need it to be in, and your plants are going to struggle. You have to fix the soil first, and then absolutely, if you want to add that stuff, you can. Absolutely. It's not going to hurt to add it, but it's not the cure. In the short term, it's not the cure.
Great. So Angie is asking, how do you replace soil between plantings? And I think she's especially thinking about containers.
Yes. Yep.
In the apartment.
Yeah. So in containers, it's quite a bit different. In containers, the best thing to do is start with good quality soil, buy a high quality bagged compost, or go to your local compost facility. We have one nearby where if you were to take a couple 5-gallon buckets, they have so much of it that they're generating that they have days where they literally say, bring 5-gallon buckets, fill it up for free. They call them free days. And it's amazing. I mean, people will come with their 4-door sedans, flip their trunk up, and they've got 4 or 5-gallon buckets they'll load up with compost. You can get it for free. You can buy a couple bags, but get good quality compost. And that is the case in which year after year, I wouldn't get new compost every year. That's not necessary. What I would simply do then because in containers, you're a little more confined to the area. I would simply supplementally add a little bit of compost every year. As the compost gets depleted or gets kind of worked, I would add a little bit of compost every year, just kind of top them off. And then I would add some nice organic fertilizer, whether you buy it from the store or whatever. Throw that into the pots, and those are far better. That's far better than just buying fresh soil every single year.
Great. So a couple of people here are asking questions about transitioning, from one crop to the next crop, and what to do with the residue. One question is particularly about your tomato vines. It seems like they're going to take a long time to decompose, and how do you manage the garden with them there? And the other one is thinking about the root balls that are often left in the ground. How do you manage things?
Yeah, we've found that if you need to remove plant material, it should be removed off site and composted close by, so that when you do have compost generated, it can go back into the garden, and what is taken out can be put back. But as far as the root balls go, the root balls should be kept in place. We actually are huge advocates of, basically, it's a form of chop and drop. Chop and drop is a form of fertilizing and soil amending that permaculturists have used for basically, as long as permaculture has been a thing, has been a craft. They advocate essentially chop and drop, and that's where you chop down organic material, you lay it flat, it breaks down. Now, you can take that material, compost it off site, compost it close by the garden if you want, but the root ball should stay intact, and that's because the root ball holds on to soil. It's essentially the anchor that keeps soil from washing away or blowing away in the wind. And what you'll find is over time, over the course of 2 or 3, maybe not even 2 or 3 months, maybe it'll be a month or two, that root ball, even of a tomato plant or a pepper plant, completely breaks down. The worms, the pill bugs, and everything comes in and decomposes it, and it rots incredibly fast. And there's really no need to remove. We actually did a video titled "Why We Recommend Leaving the Roots in the Soil after the harvest is done," for that exact reason. After a month or two, they'll be so loose you could just pull them right out of the soil, and there'll be this much roots left on a tomato plant. So yeah, it's in between crops, it's there's a lot of gardeners that worry about that, but it's pretty simple.
And one thing that I've found you can do is, when you're planting your next crop, just plan for it to go in the space that was between the rows.
Yep.
Where your root balls are.
Yep.
So you can get around it and let them rot in place.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
One more quick question here.
About do you till in compost leaves before planting if you don't in the fall? So like in the spring, if you still have them on the surface of the ground.
Yeah. So if they have not completely broken down, that's an indicator to me that there's not enough nitrogen. Generally, if you have enough nitrogen, green material, thrown in with the leaves over the course of winter, there should be no more than maybe an inch or two of undecomposed leaves what touches the air. That's because a lot of worms, they compost from below, but because they don't want to consume their cover, right? Birds then, if they were right on the surface, birds would just come in and eat them. Same with pill bugs and a lot of your other decomposers. They like dark and damp conditions. So there will generally be about a 1 to 2 inch layer of leaves on top that get left. That's fine. That is so simple. Just part it away, plant your plants, and heck, push it right back and it'll help to break it down. Or what you can do is you can use a silage tarp. The silage tarp then acts as that protective dark barrier, helps to hold moisture in the soil. The worms will come up continue breaking down those leaves. And over the course of a month to month and a half or so, there won't be anything left at all. You pull that silage tarp off, then plant your garden, and you're good to go. Or you can do what we're going to do, which is to simply cut holes in the silage tarp, cut holes right in it, peel it back, plant your plant, leave the silage tarp right in place. And that completely eradicates any weeds. It warms the soil and allows you to plant sooner. It breaks down all the organic material that was left in its place. And essentially it allows the worms to come up and completely work the soil. And then when we're done, we simply work the soil, scratch it lightly, throw a cover crop down, let it grow back up, do the same thing all over again.
Nice. Love it.
Some people also were just wondering about sources of cover crop seed. I believe that you sell several, I don't know, at least one or two.
Yeah, we have small packs. And my gardener carries small packs of cover crop. We're going to be working on carrying 1/4 pound for slightly larger plots. But in all honesty, there are plenty of places that have very great cover crop blends. I would suggest anyone listening that wants to buy cover crop blends to blend your own. Always blend your own. The reason why is you can buy a pre-blend, but you're never going to get the quality or the blend that you exactly want. And your cover crop blend should imitate what your soil needs. It shouldn't be generic. Like if it's generic, you're going to get a good cover crop, but it's not going to be the best cover crop. Like I used in our example, there are lots of cover crops we're not going to need or use because we don't need them. What we need is small amounts of nitrogen. That's where we're getting about the 15% clover. But what we really need, because our soil is fairly sandy and silty, is we need something that's going to generate lots of biomass. And because sandy soil leaches very easily, leaching is the process of losing nutrients through the soil, you typically lose nitrogen the first. And so because of that, our soil is typically fairly depleted in nitrogen. We're going to add the nitrogen in the form of a cover crop, like clover. And then we're going to add 85% of our cover crop being perennial ryegrass. And that's going to act as a biomass generator, biomass being plant material. And when that breaks down, that becomes organic material. So it helps to amend the sand. Because our soil is heavier in sand, we need biomass. Because the sand drains too freely, we lose a lot of nitrogen. We need the nitrogen. There's no need for us to add any other type. Like we wouldn't need to add radishes. A lot of farmers will add radishes. They'll throw daikon radishes out in the field. Have you heard of them doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here in Michigan, about half of our farmers in the fall will plant radishes, daikon radishes. And they do that because the soil is so compacted that it sends a taproot down, and then they'll just let it rot or they'll till it under in the spring, and it leaves a hole that allows water to percolate down and breaks up the clay soil over time. And for us, with a lot of sandy soil, we don't need to add radishes because our soil is already so loose, it would do nothing for us. So I don't recommend just buying a generic cover crop mix. Go with some place where you can buy 2 pounds of this and a pound of that. Make your own blend based on what your garden really needs.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Luke.
Yeah, it's an honor. Like I said, I love to talk about this stuff. This is a passion. I was born to do this, and I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And I love to see the light bulb pop on in gardeners' heads and say, man, I can take back food security. This is really simple.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thanks so much. I know just judging from the comments here, so many people have appreciated this talk already, but let's give Luke a hand. So
thank you.
Put a hand in the chat, and yeah, thank you again for coming on. I know we're at the hour here, but you're taking the time to come on and share this with everyone has been a real blessing. Do you have any final words that you want to share before jump off?
Yeah, no, just that if there are any gardeners that feel like they do not have what it takes, just remember that plants have been growing without your help for thousands, if not millions of years. And sometimes all it takes is just taking a little time to realize what the soil is doing, and really truly try to imitate what the soil has been trying to tell you, rather than micromanage it. We sometimes as gardeners can step in and cause too much. We try to do a little too much, and we try to micromanage our garden. And sometimes you need to step back, and it's my biggest word of encouragement. And also start small. I cannot stress that enough. For all the gardeners watching and listening, I cannot stress that enough. If you bite off more than you can chew, you can't learn the fundamentals that then skills up. I did not know the first thing about cover crops. I did not know the first thing about compost, organic material, any of that. When I first started out gardening, I jumped right into a garden that was way too big, and I ended up completely backfiring on me. For the first 2 years, I was struggling. I was having the worst time. And then around 2013, I stumbled across organic gardening. I stumbled across how to organic garden and the benefits of it. I started working on compost and working on my soil, but I scaled it back to like a small little 50 square foot garden, 50 square feet. Once I learned the fundamentals, and I had the most amazing garden ever on 50 square feet, I then scaled that up. I did 200 square feet, went to 200, then I went to 1,000 square feet. Then from 1,000 square feet, I went to 5,000 square feet total between 2 different gardens. And again, I had to learn the fundamentals first. I had to walk before I ran. I had to learn to crawl before I could walk. You have to learn those things, but starting small is definitely a great idea for anyone wanting to get started in this. And anyone can do it. So you guys all got it. I appreciate it. And like I said, it's such an honor. It's such an honor to be here. I appreciate it more than anything.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
The honor's ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Awesome wisdom there. So everyone, take that, go use it in your garden. And thank you, Luke. Thanks for being on here with us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys are awesome. You guys are the best. Yeah, we love you.
You too. Until next time, we'll see ya. Wow, that was amazing, wasn't it? Let us know in the chat if that was helpful for you. We always love just the amazing insights that these guest presenters bring on all different levels of the garden. So, and, you know, as we are going through here, people are constantly asking about the replays. And so we do want to just highlight quickly that, yes, we do have these replays available. So there's a link up at the top of the live page here where you can click on that link, go over and watch replays. They're going to be available for a limited time. And then we also are going to be making, actually, we have made them available as well for purchase. You see, our mission and vision at, here at Seed Time is to make gardening and farming easy for you, or easier. You know, everything that we do from this. Was that?
There's a lot of hard work in it, but
yes, yeah. You know, there's still the blood, sweat, and tears out in the garden, but
we think there are a lot of ways it could be made easier.
Yeah, and you know, as we're doing this summit, hosting these experts, bringing them on to share with you the tips and the tricks and the tools, you know, you can escape a lot of the school of hard knocks, as it were, by learning from other people and learning from their experience and putting it to practice in your garden. And so we want to make that available to you. And then, of course, it's time with the garden planner. It makes it a lot easier to know what to do, when to do it in your garden. And so that is our mission. That is our vision. And as we wrap up this evening, I do want to just go through quickly because we are making all of this whole summit. If you would like to own the summit, we're making it available for you to purchase as well, so that you have the opportunity to be able to come back and review any of these sessions at any time. So we've got a special little offer during the summit here, and that is that you can grab $100 off lifetime access to the Seed to Harvest Summit recordings during the summit. And here's what's included with the Seed to Harvest Summit recordings here. There's 2 packages that we have. We have a platinum package and a gold package. And inside both of them, first of all, you'll get lifetime online access to all of the recordings of the summit. So 21 presentations here. And it'll be the full video recordings so that you can come back and watch them again and again. In addition to that, we're also going to be pulling them out into MP3 versions. So if you want to, listen to it as you're gardening or doing your dishes or just on a drive, this is a great way to listen to them podcast style, catch any that you missed as well. And then we're going to also be pulling transcripts of them. So if you are one of those people that likes to do a little bit more of reading, you'll be able to skim through it quickly instead of listening or watching through the whole thing. You'll be able to do that. And hey, for the fun of it, we're going to throw in the chat live chat logs as well. And we were just mentioning last time, there's actually a lot of neat things that people share in the chat. Because they're sharing their experience from their garden and the things that's happening for them and helping them. And then additionally, at the platinum level, we're going to also put all of that onto a physical flash drive. So if you would like a physical copy shipped to your door, if you'd like to know that you actually have it and it's not just somewhere out in the ether internet space, this is a great option for you because you can get it physically shipped to your door, and we'll download it with all of the recordings, the transcripts, the MP3s, the chat logs, and all of that. In addition to that, though, with the summit, we want to not only give you expertise and the instructions from these experts and their tips and their tricks and that knowledge, but we wanted to also give you the tools to put it into practice and to make it a lot simpler and easier to plan your garden, to figure out what to do and when to do it, which was one of the top things in our pre-summit survey that many of you mentioned. Man, one of the biggest things I struggle with is figuring out what to do and when to do it in my garden. And so that's one of the big reasons that we built SeedTime, the garden planning software. And you can get a free SeedTime account if you go to seedtime.us. It's free forever. You can get started. There's so much that you can do at the free level. However, if you grab one of the packages here, you can also get upgraded access inside SeedTime, which has some extra bells and whistles as well. If you're not quite as familiar with SeedTime, SeedTime is a gardening calendar that makes it extremely easy to know what to do and when to do it in your garden based on your location. You'll set it up based on your location, and it pulls your average frost dates, and then you can click the green add crop button up here and choose the crop you want to grow, and then you can drop it into your calendar, and it will suggest when to seed it, when to transplant it, when you can expect to harvest it. You can see a whole little planting schedule right here. You can add succession plantings like you see here. It's completely adjustable. You can move those plantings around. You can plant spring ones, you can plant fall ones, you can set up your entire season. And then once you have your calendar set up, you can come over and lay out your garden visually and assign where each of those crops are going to grow inside your garden. And then you can take a little slider and walk through the year, and you can go step by step, and you can see when those spaces in your garden are going to be taken up by that crop, when that crop is taking up space, and when the spaces are open, which is fantastic for coming through all of your beds and realizing, hey, I've got there's 2 months of space here in the middle of the summer. I could be putting in a cover crop to keep living roots in the soil, keep that soil healthy during that time. Whereas if you didn't know that based on your plan, it might just end up becoming bare soil, and you just wouldn't have a plan for it. So this makes it extremely easy to be able to track both time and space together through your garden plan. SeedTime then also ports over your calendar into a task list to make it easy to stay on track. So instead of flying by the seat of your pants, you simply come, check your task list. You can check things off on a daily, weekly basis, and make adjustments on the fly as you go through your season. Pulling gardening down to making it as simple as possible, to just like following a checklist. And then in addition to that, you get unlimited journal entries where you can keep your notes and your observations. You can log pictures, link them back to specific plantings in your garden, and just really a place that you can quickly and easily keep all of those and then search them, filter them, keep track of them. There's so much more actually that you get with SeedTime. There's a whole classroom, there's a community, there's a store. We've got future releases coming down the road, but this is just a glimpse into what you get with your SeedTime account. In addition, to getting upgraded level access in Seed Time, we're also throwing in 1 year of free bonus online access to our home gardening course. And this is our flagship home gardening course. It includes 12 modules, over 18 hours of video training. It was the first course that we ever created. We're actually redoing it this year. And so you'll get access to those updated videos. But it's got a bunch of pages of worksheets to go along with it, walking you through step-by-step strategies to get to desired end results in your garden, like how to keep your garden weed free without spending hours on your knees pulling weeds, how to deal with pests and diseases in a natural way by building healthy soil like we're talking about here, like our guests are talking about here, how to extend your season into the winter without breaking your pocketbook, so much more. And you'll get 1 year of online access to the home gardening course. In addition to that, you'll also get bonus access to some sponsor session recordings that we have that are not going to be aired in the main portion of this summit, but we have some sponsors that are like the microbiome the microbiometer that we just did a giveaway recently for. They did a sponsor session where they're walking you through how you can test your soil for the microbes and understanding what's in your soil in that way. And Diego, a friend of ours with Modern Grower, did a whole session on season extension, which is really awesome, showing just very simple, low-cost, practical ways that you can protect your veggies over the winter without breaking your pocketbook. So you'll get access to those bonus sponsor sessions. And in addition to that, we have one more bonus here, and that is that you get bonus access to some unaired garden training sessions. These are ones that are not going to be aired at all during the summit, but you get access to them at our platinum package. And part of the reason with that is we filled up all of the speaker spots in the summit, and then we have had other friends and speakers that were like, man, those are awesome sessions that they could do as well. So they came on, they recorded those sessions and have added them to these bonuses here as well. One of them is my friend James Fry, who grows a Revolution garden bed, which grows his crops 2 times faster. This is the Revolution garden bed next to a regular raised bed, planted, seeded at the same time. He has a little time lapse that he plays in his session. You can watch them both grow. It's kind of crazy. So anyways, he walks through the whole thing and showing you how he does it and what's happening, kind of going into the background process of what are the microbes doing and how is this working that these plants are growing so much faster. Really cool stuff there. And if you sign up tonight, we have a little special fast action bonus for those of you who signed up yesterday or tonight, and that is to jump in with 12 months of live monthly group coaching calls with the Seed Time team. You see, here at Seed Time, it's really our goal to try and to help you as much as possible to grow the absolutely best, most amazing garden that you have ever had, and with the highest yields possible. And so this monthly training is something that can help you along that journey. Once a month, my dad and I jump on. We have a garden training session that's live. We share a video update from our garden, and then it's an opportunity to ask your gardening questions, to ask Seed Time questions if you're using the software, and to get support all year long. And we'd love to have you part of that and be able to support you, not just in a summit like this, but to be able to actually walk through an entire season and be able to, the other thing is people were saying, man, I wish they could answer more questions in the sessions like this. And unfortunately, with like 2,500 to 3,000 people, like we can never get to all of the questions. But in these monthly sessions, we do get to all of the questions, and we walk through all of the questions of the students that come there. So we're excited about those. And again, if you jump in at the platinum level tonight, we'll put you in for free with these 12 monthly live group coaching sessions as well. So the platinum level is $298 at full price, but during the summit, you can get $100 off and jump in for just $198 at the platinum level of the package. And the gold is $198 at full price. But during the summit here, you can jump in again for $100 off for just $98. So our team has put up a link in the chat there. If you would like to jump in and grab the recordings and own them, if for example, if you're not going to be able to make it to all the sessions, or you want to just have the peace of mind that you can come back and review them anytime, you can go to seedtoharvestsummit.com/lifetime, or you can use the little QR code there. We also do want to just note that we do back this up with our 30-day money back guarantee. So either the summit as well as seed time just make your gardening experience so much easier, and absolutely knock it out of the park with tips and tricks and tools that you can use for your garden. Or send us an email within the first 30 days and we 100% will back you up. 100%. We want to take that risk off of your shoulders, put it on our shoulders. Ultimately, we are here to serve. And if it's not the right fit for you, then we don't want you paying for it. So we want you to be able to simply try it out without the pressure and see if it's the right fit for you. Otherwise, now is the time to take your garden to the skies. Like Linda here, who says, I've never had such great vegetables. And Carol, who says, my raised garden beds already look better than they ever have because of this course. I'm going to jump through just a couple of these. We won't read all of these. Scott says, by far my best garden ever, 22 pounds of today's harvest. And my crazy garden has been amazing this year and grew in size and abundance, so much produce. Ultimately, we want you to have the experience of Roy here, who says there was a very noticeable difference in the amount of fruit this year compared to last year. Or James Hunt, who said the kale and collards did well all winter. I ate fresh greens all winter long. So I know so many of you have said that you want that continual harvest of something out of your garden fresh every single week of the year. And that is part of our goal as well, is to help walk you through that process. CJ says, I now have a clear plan of what to do when. Kim, my fall and winter garden last year was the best ever because of the guesswork of when to plant was simplified and so easy. So we could go on and on. Like I said, we're not going to read through all of these here. At the end of the day, we want to serve you. We're here for you. We want to give you not only training, not only expert insights and tips and tools, but also the tools and the software to make it simpler and easier for you to do if you're interested in that as well. So once again, if you jump in tonight, you can grab the fast action bonus, or to do that, just go to seedtoharvestsummit.com/lifetime. And we would love to have you be a part of our Seed Time family. All right. Any final questions here that we should touch on? Or is there anything, Dad, that you think that we should touch on before we wrap it up for this evening?
So Kathy was saying that she had not been able to access her free account. And I just wanted to encourage you, Kathy, to try again. We think we've got that solved. But if you're not able to get it, then you send an email to support at seedtime.us.
Yes. Absolutely. All right. Very good. I see one question here from Brandy. With the platinum purchase, does there include a discount for lifetime access to Seed Time? I thought you said that yesterday. Good question, Brandy. We have a special upgrade option to get dual lifetime access to Seed Time as well as the School of Traditional Skills. It's like a bundle, just like the ultimate garden homestead bundle, because School of Traditional Skills is going to be sharing a session tomorrow, and they just have a quite an incredible school filled with classes. They've got like 7 or 8 gardening classes. They've got other traditional skills classes like knife sharpening and food dehydrating and canning,
food preservation, all
kinds of classes like that. And you can get lifetime access to both of them at a discount with as soon as you purchase the summit recordings here. There's an option to get that bundled discount. And if you have questions on that, feel free to shoot us an email again at support@seedtime.us, and we'd be happy to help answer your questions there. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We've been going for almost an hour and a half. Once again, if you'd like to get the fast action bonus, just make sure to grab that platinum account before midnight tonight. And we will continue to make the replays available during the summit here and a little bit into next week. So hope you have a wonderful evening. And there's an extra question here.
Says she doesn't see a place to put her coupon code.
All right, Kat, just make sure that you scroll down. If you're on a desktop, look on the left-hand side of the screen. If you're on mobile, make sure you scroll all the way down. It might be down at the bottom of the screen. So check that out for you. All right. Thank you all. Hope that you have a wonderful rest of the evening. Tomorrow is going to be a power-packed day. We're going to be...
Wait a minute. Today was already.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You're going to do another one like this?
Today was power-packed, and tomorrow is going to continue the same. I'm just going to pull up the schedule here real quick. We're going to launch it off out of the park with Anisetta Scott tomorrow. We're going to be talking about productivity in the garden, and it's going to be everything from creating community with your garden to the prepared garden with school traditional skills, permaculture for the home garden. If you like permaculture, don't miss Dakota's session. Justin Rhodes is going to be talking about the chicken garden miracle and how you can use chickens in with your garden to help improve your garden. And
by the way, if you live in a cold place, you'll want to listen to Dakota. He's from Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta area, not Edmonton itself, but
yeah. And then tomorrow's going to wrap up with Cody and Michelle Knox talking about, can you really grow all your own food? That's going to be a neat one. So you won't want to miss those. Make sure to come join us tomorrow. Today has been a full day. It's a great day to wrap up the first day of the session. But guess what? We got 3 more days filled with powerful content just like today. So come join us tomorrow and have a good evening.
Yeah, have a good evening. Get rested up. Ready for a big day tomorrow.
We'll see you in the morning. Good night.